The Solitaire Series, Episode 5, The Five of Hearts, by Troy Lambert, narrated by Troy Lambert. 16 is a crap hand, at least if the dealer is showing a 6 or 7. You're right on that border, know what I mean? Stand or hit, it can really go either way. Of course, all of this is easier if you're counting cards. And don't tell me how illegal or unfair it is. You know the odds always favor the house, right? Sure, if you were playing single deck, counting cards would make a huge difference. In Vegas casinos, playing 8, it's tougher to win, and tougher to manage your money, and when you choose to lose, to make sure a smart dealer, or, let's be honest, casino surveillance, catches on to what you're doing. Not everyone can be a card counter. It takes a certain personality type. Fortunately, I have a touch of OCD when it comes to details. I'm pretty disciplined, and I've developed a system. I hate casinos, really. For me, blackjack and counting cards isn't a hobby, it's a profession. I track everything, every win, loss, and break even. I started with a relatively small bankroll, a couple of grand. I was unemployed and it was all I had. Now I make a couple $100,000 a year just from playing blackjack, and I only work that job about 180 hours annually. Fortunately, I travel a lot. And besides Vegas and Atlantic City, the biggies, there are all kinds of small casinos on Native American land, and they actually make pretty good targets. The dealers are often inexperienced, but if you get caught counting in one of those places, well, let's just say you better get off the reservation quickly. There's some vigilante justice going on out there, and you're as likely to end up in a hole as back on the freeway unless you're quick and a little sly. The other place you don't want to be caught is a Solitaire-owned casino. You've never heard of them? That's how they like it. I almost got caught in one of their places on a Wednesday, a good day to work. It's not too busy, and the dealers are often bored and looking to be entertained. That I can do. No, I didn't say it was a good day to gamble. It's only gambling if you think you might lose. Can you come with me, sir? A hand touched Burt on the shoulder. The 5 of hearts lay on top of his cards. 21. The dealer was bust. Again. Too fucking bad. Boo! Several people around him chanted. Leave him be. The cheap alcohol in their breath accompanied their words. The sounds in the casino provided a backdrop for their chorus. Slot machines beeped and clinked, and shouts of victory and groans of defeat came from the craps tables. Poker was one of the few quiet games in the room, each player trying to avoid their personal tell and instead giving off other obvious signals. Obvious to him, anyway. Dull. People loved a winner, and it was part of Burt's shtick. Gather an audience. That was the real reason for the ruby red top hat and coat, the black and white Oxfords, the wine-colored scarf, and the gold-rimmed sunglasses with pink lenses. Instead of protesting, he gathered his winning chips and stood. No, folks, we all know how these big places hate a winner. He emphasized the last word, and he saw his 2 potential escorts hesitate. One cocked his head, though, showing Burt someone had spoken to him in his earpiece. Not a good sign. Still, he played the game. I'll be back once they clear my lucky-ass card-playing name, he declared. One bystander, a woman in a tiny black cocktail dress more suited for Friday night than Wednesday afternoon, wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him on the lips. Burt responded despite the taste of cheap wine and the smell of even cheaper perfume that drifted off her in a wave of sickening intensity. For luck, she said. The crowd cheered, and he waved to them as the men led him away. They passed a bank of slots facing a turntable near the front of the casino, and a motorcycle sitting on it spun slowly, chrome flashing under the neon lights, and bearing a sign enticing players to win me. A thin man limped by using a cane. Behind dark sunglasses and a low-fitting hat, Burt could see that half his face was horribly scarred. He wore white gloves, and one leg looked much thinner than the other. A Doberman wearing a support animal vest pranced at his side. The man headed down one row of slots, his dog right behind him. Poor bastard, Burt swore. Even if he wins that bike, he'll never be able to ride it. This way. One of the 2 men gestured, and Burt headed up the flight of stairs ahead of them, passing between two more men standing at the top, staring straight ahead like sphinxes guarding the pyramids. All of them wore identical suits. Assholes. Burt was ushered down the hallway into an exquisite office. A beautiful woman sat behind a large desk. Diamonds dangled from her ears, at least a carat each. Her black dress was open at the front, showing off her cleavage and a necklace with another set of diamonds, the value of which Burt couldn't estimate. "Nice suit," she said. "Thanks." Burt had no time for marriage or relationships. He paid for the fulfillment of any of his appetites on the rare occasion he had them. Jewelry and superficial beauty were meaningless to him. Cash was king. Still, he thought he might give things a go with this woman if she gave him a chance. "Do we need to watch footage of you in my casino?" she said, leaning forward. Her position had the desired effect, and his eyes traveled from hers downward. "Suppose we can," he said. "Depends on how much time you want to waste." "You're counting cards." "I'm providing those in your casino with entertainment and something else they want too." "What's that?" "A winner to root for." "How kind of you. How much did you net today?" Burt shrugged and deposited his chips on her desk. She whistled. "A bit more than lucky, wouldn't you say?" "You would, but again—" A small man, Asian, maybe Japanese, entered. "Excuse me, ma'am." The woman sat back and looked at the new arrival. "Well?" "He's here." "Jack?" she said. "Jesus Christ." "I have a plan," the man said, glancing at Burt. The woman sighed. "It's your lucky day," she told him. She took half the chips and slid the rest back to him. "Take this, cash out, leave, never come back. Understood?" Burt nodded. "Thank you, ma'am." "Don't thank me. Thank Jack." "I don't know who—" But he didn't get to finish his sentence. "Hey, Mr. Five of Hearts, get the fuck out before I change my mind and have you put out a little more permanently." "Understood," he said, and tipped his hat and left the room. There was some kind of commotion happening on the stairs, so he turned down the hallway, following the signs to the elevator. About halfway down, he stopped and watched the Asian man leave the office and head towards the disturbance. Whoever this Jack was, Burt wanted to see him for himself. He reached the elevators and frantically pressed the down arrow. The short hum of a motor was followed by a ding half a second later, and the elevator arrived. A quick descent put him on the casino floor. He walked around the corner. The scarred man was about halfway up the stairs. His dog sat at the top, next to the Asian man. To his right, Burt heard more than saw loud celebrating. A sweat-stained gambler he'd noticed earlier cheered wildly, surrounded by a small crowd. The crowd included a couple of security guards. The man on the stairs had to be Jack. The other gambler, though clearly a big winner, actually seemed to be of little consequence. Burt stared with fascination at first, then turned and headed for the cashier's window. It would be best not to press his luck by staying to watch whatever happened next. As he stood in line to collect his winnings, though, he saw the small man and Jack tussle at the top of the stairs. The confrontation looked odd. First Jack was on his back on the ground, and then suddenly the smaller man was down, and Jack was up, limping towards the office Burt had just left. "Next," the cashier called. Burt looked around. Normally, he would be backroomed or escorted out for counting cards, and he'd assumed his departure would be closely watched, but at the moment, no one paid any attention to him at all. He stepped forward and placed his chips on the counter. "Wow, you had a good day, sir," the cashier said. "Hang on a moment while I get this ready for you. Hundreds okay?" He just nodded. When she paid him out, he slipped the envelope with the cash inside his jacket. Then he walked back towards the blackjack tables. If no one was watching, he might try his hand again. The woman upstairs might be distracted for some time. When he neared the tables, he saw one of the men who had escorted him upstairs earlier. The man simply wagged a finger at him. "Nope," Burt mumbled. "Time to get out." As he turned, he saw the scarred man, Jack, walking towards him. His hat was knocked back just a little, revealing scars on his forehead as well as the rest of his face, tracing all the way down into the neck of his shirt. His sunglasses sat on the remains of his nose, a little crooked and off-center. His right eye socket appeared to be devoid of even a glass eye. At a perfect heel, his dog followed. Jack turned to walk out of the casino, and Burt saw him straighten the hat and reach up to adjust his sunglasses. As he exited the doors, Burt saw a gorgeous Thunderbird, one from the mid-70s, waiting for him. The valet opened the driver's door for him, and Burt saw the man tip the valet, big from the grin that followed. The dog hopped into the car, followed by his master. Burt stepped out just as they pulled away. He took note of the license number, more for his own curiosity than anything else. "Who was that guy?" he asked the valet. "His name's Jack, I think. He used to come around here a lot. I haven't seen him in a while until today. What happened to him?" The valet shrugged. "Somebody who tips as well as he does, I don't ask. Pretty gruesome, though. That dog is always with him." "Huh," Burt said. He turned to go back inside and at least get that drink he'd been craving, when the wail of sirens interrupted his thoughts. "On second thought," he said to the valet, "can you bring my car around?" "Certainly, sir." Burt knew of another place to get a drink nearby and maybe get some answers to his questions. He had a strange urge to find out who Jack was and maybe even get in touch with him. Maybe they could be friends, allies even. That is, if Jack was what Burt thought he was. His poorly aging Mustang appeared a few moments later. He generously tipped the valet and then left. When he got to the street, he took a left towards the Strip. His mouth was dry, and he needed to quench his thirst in more ways than one. "You don't know Jack," he told himself, "but you will, Mr. Five of Hearts. You will." As he headed down the Strip, he thought he saw the Thunderbird up ahead. How many of those could there be in Vegas? He put the pedal to the floor, working hard to keep up. The Thunderbird rolled down the Strip, then turned in at the Luxor. Burt followed and parked right behind him in the valet line. He watched as Jack painfully exited his car, let his dog out, and tipped the young man in a red tuxedo. Then another uniformed youngster appeared at his window, and Burt stood, opening the door for him. "Park it safe, but close," he said. The valet took the wheel. "No bag, sir?" "Not today," Burt said. He'd have to send for some things from his other hotel shortly. He went inside to the front desk and asked for a room. "How long will you be staying?" the clerk asked. "I don't know," Burt said, glimpsing the man using a cane headed for the elevator, his Doberman not far behind. Thanks for listening to The Five of Hearts by Troy Lampert. Narrated by Troy Lampert. Next up in the series, The Two of Spades.